Okay, I think I will wait another 2 minutes. Maybe some more people are joining. Okay, then I will start from 7:05. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. You all are welcome for this our second webinar on VDA Automotive SPICE Guideline Overview. And I can see from participant people are there from all over globe. Okay, so let us start this overview. The high level understanding of the Automotive SPICE Guideline developed by the VDA. Okay, so before going for the guideline, my introduction, my name is Sunil Kumar. I am CEO and Principal Consultant at Zuku Consulting Private Limited. Earlier, I have worked with a Method Park and also Business Cube and partners in Japan. Okay. I am working in Automotive SPICE since its inception, that is from 2005. And also I am representing the Intex in most of the Asian countries. I am certified principal assessor and also the instructor for both the courses, for competent course as well as provisional assessor course and also the guidelines. I'm also member of the standard course material. I'm advisor for Korean and SPICE network. And during my tenure in Japan, so I was the core member to establish Nippon SPICE network. Okay. I conducted several formal, informal assessment all over world. I trained around 400 participants for provisional and competent assessor course. Okay. So this is about my profile. Of course, I'm participating in various conferences for keynote speakers. Okay. And after this, then we will discuss VDA Automotive Spice Guideline. So here you can see right side, this is the Blue Book developed by VDA, a joint quality management in supply chain. And in this guideline, mainly they are defining the VDA scope. Here also I can find so many are senior people and they are provisional assessor and they may be aware about HIS. Okay, so HIS group was very, very popular. But now this group is no more existing. The same group is taken over by the VDA. And now it is called VDA scope. These are the 16 processes in VDA scope. So in automotive spice altogether, we have 32 process. But in this guideline, only 16 process considered. Okay, that is in VDA scope, not all 32. Because major car manufacturer and their supplier, they are requesting mainly these 16 processes. Okay. So this guideline defining the interpretation application guideline for the assessors, detailed rating guidelines, okay, rules, recommendations, okay, documented assessment process, recommendation for performing an assessment, recommendation for report preparation, and requirement for assessor qualification. Okay, so presently we know for assessor qualification, currently we have the INTEX scheme. Okay, INTEX is taking care for the assessor qualifications. Okay, 3 levels of assessor: provisional, competent, and principal assessors. And this guideline is very, very good document, particularly also for interpreting the base practice and generic practice, because model is not defining very detailed information. And technically also at the same time, if you are going to become a competent assessor or principal assessor or instructors, then this is the prerequisite to go for this guideline training. Okay, so hereafter you can, this book is available at VDA store, so you can buy this hard copy from VDA. Okay, and it will help you a lot actually. So, and after this, then we have this content of this book. So this is the overall TOC of this book. So apart from the journal informations, then we have the application for interpretation and rating guideline. And I will pick up some major part of this content in this webinar today. We have the key concepts and overall guideline. Key concepts, specific terms, okay, like verification criteria, application in a specific environment, agile environments, okay, distributed development environment, these type of things. And then we have the rating guideline. You can see for level 1, total 16 process only. Okay, and then we have the rating guideline for level 2, level 3. Okay, and then we have the guideline for performing the assessments. Okay, so here we have the documented assessment process, improvement process, recommendation for performing an assessment, and requirements relating to the assessor qualification. Okay, so this is the complete picture of this guideline. Now we will pick up some important aspects, and before picking up, we need to understand the volume of this book. If we see the automotive spice version 3.1, you all are practitioner of this model. Okay, it has 128 pages, 16 process. So we are only talking the VDA scope here, plus 1 compared to HIS. Actually, HIS was 15 process. Okay, so this was version 2.5. In version 2.5, but some process are reorganized. So altogether process remains same, but number is changed from 15 to 16. One process divided, another process merged. Okay, like software architecture design. Earlier it was software architecture design and detailed design in one process. Now detailed design and coding are mixed together. Unit verification is independent. Earlier coding and unit verification, this was only one process called software construction. So these two processes converted to the theory process. That is the major difference from version 2.5 and 3.1. And 127 base practice. Okay. In automotive spice for 16 process. We are only concentrating VDA, and 22 generic practices for level 2 and level 3. Altogether, we have 352 generic practice for 16 process, and total is 479 practice for complete VDA scope assessment. Okay. So this many practice we need to satisfy if we want to achieve capability level 3 in VDA scope for particular project. Okay. And when we see the VDA guideline, then here is 300 pages, more than automotive spice, 283 rules, 212 recommendations. Altogether, we have 495 rules and recommendations for a complete VDA scope assessment. Okay, so this is the overall volume of this document. Okay. Now let's start with the rules and recommendations. We have seen rules and recommendation. Rules is must. Okay. Recommendation is optional. If you are not following rule, then you must provide some evidence, some reason why this rules is not being followed. Okay. If recommendation, you can leave without providing any justification. Okay. So all the rules and recommendations are defined in this format. Here the 8 type of format for the rules, 10 type of format in the recommendations. If then you need to provide some subjective conditions, situations, then PA 2.1 must not be rated F. If the indicator BP1 must not be rated F. Okay. So these are only the formats provided, and based on this format, complete rules and regulations are recommendations are formulated. Okay. So left side you will find rules, right side you will find recommendations. So recommendation also you can see like number 6, if something the indicator A is downrated, rating NPL, the indicator B should not be rated higher. Okay, so it is slightly tough by reading only this slide. Okay, so I prepared some example for you to understand what is rules and recommendation and what they are looking for. Here I am providing one example, and this example is from the software requirement. Okay. Everybody may be aware, or this is a very, very important requirement for software requirement BP2, base practice 2. Base practice 2 is for the structure the software requirement, okay, in software requirement specification. So we need to structure software requirement, grouping the requirement, making the requirement as per sections, subsections, grouping requirement as per the functionality, functional requirement, non-functional requirement, safety requirement, security requirement, and then we need to prioritize these requirements to be implemented in particular release. Priority again, it can be high, medium, low. Priority also if you align your requirement with the respective release. Okay. So here they have given one information or one paragraph here. Software requirements are structured by grouping, sorting, categorizing to support a prioritization and to map the required functionality to the future release. This much is expected if you want to satisfy this base practice for F fully achieved. The structure and categorization of software specification enables the project to manage the requirement in terms of organizational, technical, legal, internal topics. Okay. Now you see the recommendation and rules. How the rules and recommendation defined to satisfy this requirement, and what is the consistency, dependency. If the categorization is not appropriate as mentioned above, the indicator BP2 must not be rated higher than L. Okay. So again, assessor judgment. It can be N, P, L, it depends, but certainly it cannot be the F if you are not considering the grouping, sorting, categorization, prioritization. Okay. So this is the rule. RL is rule. Rule.4, RL.4. Next is RL.5. If the mapping of the functionality to the release does not reflect the customer and other stakeholder need, the indicator BP2 shall be downrated. Okay. So here is mainly the shall word is being used, shall and must. Okay. So again, if all the customer requirement is not mapping with the release, okay, so you cannot rate it better. It should be downrated. Here also the scope actually, scope of interpretation. What does downrating means? It means if you are feeling by considering this that it should be F or L, then you need to specifically look towards this evidence and downrate then the rating what you are likely to provide. If there is no evidence for prioritization, now you see the recommendation. If there is no evidence for prioritization, but a release plan maps the functionality to future releases, the indicator BP2 should not be downrated. Yes, even in the requirement, it is not necessary that you assign high, medium, low priority always. Customer requirement, every requirement you need to implement. And generally, requirements are mapped with their release. Okay, customer asks you what type of requirement to be sent in sample A, which one in sample B, and so on. So there is no meaning of prioritization. Prioritization can support you for scheduling and implementing the requirement. Okay, so you should not downrate if you don't find high, medium, low. If requirements are mapped, you are satisfied, then it's fine. Okay, and this is related with BP2 output. So this is how actually rules recommendation defined for all 16 process. Considering all base practice, considering the capability levels, generic practices, considering the generic practices of level 3. One more example I will show you. I took from the change request management. In change request management, if you will read BP5, BP5 is asking approval of change before implementation. Okay. So certainly it is not like a defect. Defect you need to resolve. Okay. You cannot leave the defect. But change, it depends. It depends on the cost, criticality, complexity. Okay. So many aspects are there. Change maybe, maybe not. Okay. But before implementing, you need to get the approval from the relevant stakeholders. And generally it is called CCB, Change Control Board. Okay. So if not all relevant disciplines or stakeholder are represented in actual CCB, the indicator BP must not be rated F. So when you are rating, it is not like a project manager, you find the change and project manager approved and that's it. Whereas if you will see the organization chart, project manager is more like a coordinator. Software team is dealt directly by software manager, hardware team by hardware manager, change related with software, and software manager or the senior leader is not being considered while approving the change. So it should not be rated higher. Okay. Another part of this, if it is visible that decisions are not taken or not taken in time by the CCB. Sometimes change is there, but you took a good amount of time. You have carry on waited for approving this change. Okay. So that is also not a good approach. BP5 should be downrated. Okay. There should be the reason. If there is no reason, then it should be downrated. Again, automotive spice is not only reviewing the work product, okay, but also ensuring efficient and sufficient activity is being performed. Okay, and these are related with BP1, certainly strategy, BP5, approve change implement request before the implementations. Okay, here is the dependency denotations. How to read this? Of course, in next slide, I will show you this picture, and before explaining this, let me explain the naming of these different colors. Very simple. If straight line is for the rules, dotted line for the recommendations. Rules are straight line, dotted line recommendations. If it is going from blue box to blue box, it means it is within a process or within particular capability level. Okay, it is within a process or within a capability levels. Okay, straight line, dotted line. If it is a blue, if it is going blue to green, it means the dependency is out of process or out of capability levels. Okay, blue to blue, dependency within a process. Okay, of course, in next slide I will show you how we should understand this color coding, and it is very interesting. And if blue to green, then it is showing out of process. Some process are dependent from the out, not the same process based practice, but the base practice or the process attribute of the different processes. Okay, so this is how we should understand this. And now again, I took one example here for capability level 1. And this type of diagram you will find in the book for all process, 16 process, and also all process attributes. Okay, we have the 4 attribute. Level 2 have 2 process attribute, level 3 have 2 process attribute. Now you see here, if you will see the specify system requirement. Let us say if you specify system requirement, if system requirement is not sufficient, if BP1 you have downrated, then certainly your PA 1.1. What is PA 1.1? Is process attribute 1.1 responsible for the capability level 1. So your rating should be in line with BP1. It cannot be like BP1 is P and PA 1.1 is L or F. Now you see this specify requirement is used by several base practice, or I would say all the base practices. Okay, you will only analyze requirement if you have the sufficient requirement. You only can structure BP2 the requirement if you have the requirement. You only can develop the verification criteria if you define the requirement. Okay, you only can communicate agreed requirement if you have the requirement. You only can analyze the operating environment if you have the specified system requirement. So you see the dependency. All other base practice are dependent on specified system requirement. So this specified system requirement BP1 should be in line with the PA 1.1. Okay, so it has a very big weightage. Okay, if we see the other process, now you can see the green, MEN 3, MEN 5, identify risk, define, monitor and adjust, project estimate, resources. Okay, these are using analyze system requirement. Okay, estimation is based on the requirement. How many requirement you have? What are the criticality of the requirement? How many requirement you are reusing? Okay, and that will help you for estimating the resource, estimating the size of the project, in turn estimating the efforts, human resources. Okay, identify risk is very much one element when you are analyzing the system requirement. So these should be in line with each other. Same requirement elicitation, PA 1.1. If it is down, then certainly specify system requirement will be down. You cannot rate higher, because if requirement elicitation is not sufficient, then how you will specify the system requirement? Okay, same goes for the traceabilities. Okay, so this is how we should read this. Mainly the dependency is provided different between different best practice and all here. Okay, what I explain is provided here, and I will go back and forth. Like here, if the indicator for specification of system requirement BP1 is downrated, if BP1 is downrated, specify system requirement, then PA 1.1 shall be downrated as all indicators BP 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are affected. If PA 1.1 of sys.1, PA 1.1 of sys.1, requirement elicitation, PA 1.1 requirement elicitation, capability level 1 is downrated, this should be in line with rating of the indicator BP1. Okay. If the indicator BP3 is downrated, BP3, what is BP3? Analysis, analyze system requirement. This should be in line with the rating of indicator about project estimates. It should be in line with the risk identifications. Okay. And again, next to is if PA 1.11 of sys1 is downrated, this should be in line with the rating of indicator BP6 and BP7. What is BP6 and BP7? BP6 is traceability, development traceability. BP7 is consistency. Okay. If that process, previous process is downrated, then you don't have the sufficient data for establishing the consistency and the traceability metrics. Okay. This is how we should read all. These are the rating consistency in every process. So I took only one example here. In the book, you will find several examples, and for every process, at least one picture of this, and then the explanations. Okay. Next, I took one consistency from capability levels. I have taken PA 2.1. Okay. Performance management. In performance management, there are 7 generic practice. Okay, we all know. And in these generic practice, these are also dependent with each other. Even by reading, you can make out, identify the objective. Okay, we need to develop a plan to fulfill the identified objectives. Okay, and we should monitor the plan in GP 2.1.3 against the plan. Monitoring of every activity based on the plan. Okay. And when you are monitoring, then you are adjusting. So very simple. For every process, you are defining the objective. Okay. And to meet the objective, then you are planning that particular process. After planning, then regularly you are monitoring to meet the targets, to meet the planned values. And if any deviation, then we are adjusting, either delaying schedule or adding the resources, okay, asking the management or customer to adjust the deliveries, okay, or adding some human resource or tools, budgets, okay. So this is how the rating will be influenced from one generic practice to the other generic practice. So things are linked with each other. It cannot be like you assign plan F and GP 2.1.1 is P. Okay, so these are dependent with each other. And so here also define role, responsibility and authority for the processes. Responsibility, authority also link with 2.1.6. Make the sufficient available human resources, tools, licenses, okay, to perform the work. Person should be competent enough, okay. And then managing the interface. Now you see, manage the interface between involved parties. This diagram is very, very interesting and very good for the assessment and for your understanding. So many things are interlinked. By doing one activity, you can satisfy several best practice and generic practices. Okay. Every GP 2.1.7 is for managing the interfaces. If your process are going for level 2, then this is the mandatory requirement to satisfy GP 2.1.7. And this is about the communication, interfaces. And at the same time, if you will read project management BP7, that is also defining and monitoring and adjusting the interfaces and agreed commitment. Okay. And if you will go to engineering process, all engineering process, last best practice is summarize. If you we see the left side, then then communicate agreed requirement or communicate agreed interface architecture design or detailed design. If we see the right side of the V, then we have the summarizing of the test result and communicate. Okay, so communication is involved, interfaces is involved. Okay, so altogether, if we have one communication plan, by considering the all joint interfaces of all the processes, okay, so you can see here we can satisfy 10 engineering, 10 base practice and 16 generic practices if 16 process within scope, and one base practice of the project management process. Okay, so they are linked with each other. If some generic practice or base practice affected, then they are affecting the other base practice and generic practices. So GP 2.1.7, certainly. If we are going 16 process, then 16 practices. Okay, and we have the 10 process, engineering process. 10, this 16 and 10, 26, and one is the project management, 27 practices. If you have the communication plan, you have the proper communication mechanism available, okay, you are executing all the joint activities, then you can satisfy 27 practices. Same here, if you go to the BP6 required skills of MEN 3, that is also impacting the GP 2.1.6. Okay, and plan GP 2.1.2 should be in line with MEN 3, BP4, BP5, BP8. BP4 is for the project activities. Yes, in the plan we need to define the activities for every process. Then the estimates, resources, and also the project schedule. Okay, so similar way here also you can find some explanation of this. If the indicator for identifying the objective for the performance of process is downrated, JP 2.1.1, the indicator 2.1.2 shall be downrated. Okay, 2.1.1 and 2.1.2 is related with each other. Next, if indicator planning the performance 2.1.2 is downrated, then 2.1.3 should be downrated. Monitor. You cannot monitor without plan. You can't say that I don't have plan, but I am monitoring every week. Then what you are monitoring if you don't have the plan? Okay. Same way, if we go for this 2.1.2, for all process should be in line with the rating of indicators MEN 3, project management, BP 4, 5, and 8. Okay. And rating of the 2.1.7, that is the communication of consolidated considering process, should be in line with the rating of the indicator of communicate, agreed, and also your right side we summarize and communicate. Okay, so this is how actually we should read this, and this this way all our process attribute are defined in the guideline. So I took only one process attribute for today's discussion. Next is key concepts. In table of content, I have shown you there are some key concepts. to make you understand little bit better, because automotive spice is very high level document, abstract level. Okay, and it is not providing a detailed information. One side you will find so many base practice, particularly support process and testing process. And first base practice is define the strategy. Now question is, what is strategy? Plan is also a strategy. And if we are developing the plan, then why GP 2.1.2 in level 2 to develop a plan? So it is contradicting with each other. Okay. But now guideline and also in understanding, they have make it a little bit more clear to make you understand what is the plan at level 1 and what is the requirement of plan at level 2. Yes, when strategy we find we need to develop a plan. It can be plan, it can be called with some other name. It is not always like use the word plan. Okay. So here is plan is the work product to show the existence and implementation of a strategy. So for example, if we say define the software integration test strategy or integration strategy. So generally the process specific requirement, process specific approach is to be considered in a strategy. Like what is the sequence of integration? What are the different integration methods you are using? What are the test case design methods? What are the testing methods you are using? What is entry criteria, exit criteria? This is all part of the strategy and part of plan, but this is required at level 1 when we are talking BP1. If the same process going for level 2, then we need to add some more generic informations. So here we can see at capability level 2, a plan shall cover additionally schedules, milestone, target date, effort, allocation, dependencies, okay, role responsibilities, these informations. So at level 2, we are looking for the generic informations like schedule, role responsibility, okay, tools, availability, efforts, milestone, all this information at level 2. And process specific information, that is a part of level 1. You call it a strategy or you call it plan. So strategy and plan. So this has made very distinguished in the guideline. Okay, what we should consider in a strategy and what we should consider in plan. Another, I took the example summarize and communicate. Of course, I took 2-3 here. There are several in book. Okay, that will give you more insight. And in this version 3.1, they have removed some inconsistency from version 2.5 of automotive spice. So here also they are defining the summarization and communication. So here we have the 3 major aspects, of course, that I also discussed in the diagram. For the process dealing with the requirement architecture means left side V. So left side V, what we are doing? We are communicating the agreed work products. It means agreed, we reviewed, we approved, and then we are communicating to the relevant stakeholders. Right side, we are summarizing the test results and then communicating to the relevant stakeholders. And in project management, BP7, that is talking about the formal setup of communication. Okay. Next, distributed development. Yes, development at different locations, departments, divisions. One standard or several, how to manage. Okay. Definition of scope responsibility. So all these informations are detailed described in this book. How to deal in distributed development. Okay. Integration of product, escalation, routes. Next important aspects of this guideline is assessment scope. Okay, that gives and very detailed information about how to define the assessment scope. Some information are very common. Boundaries of organization unit, yes. within one location or different locations? How many locations are there? Processes to be included. Okay. What are the process within the scope of the assessment? Target capability level and process context. So process context, you should clearly define. Is your process assessment is going for all the requirement received from customer, or all the changes, or assessment scope is the limited only for one release or for complete product? Okay, so that type of informations are detailed out against the process context. And this is again a very important part is clarified in this guideline. Challenges for defining the scope in the past rating have been based on the different assessment approach. There are the two assessment approach. One is the process improvement and another is the process related product risk. Process improvement approach is focusing on the project generally capable of executing the process, irrespective of the sufficiency of the input. If you have inadequate input, but your process is performing well, then it can be rated better. That is one approach, process improvement. Another is the process related with the product risk. Here we need to consider whether sufficient input is there or not. Do we find any risk in development of the product? Okay. Not only limited with the process, but also the sufficient data. Both approach are valid, but need to be defined in advance. Define it clearly, because rating are not comparable across different purposes. This is strongly supported by defining the appropriate assessment context and process instances. Okay, and here is we have given some more clear information about process improvement approach and another approach. So now you see here, first rating approach, process improvement, good process performance with insufficient input from other process leads to a rating with F. Argument is process is executed in a good way based on the available input. 40% of specs available and you are performing wonderfully well test process, and for given 40% system requirement, test process executed very well, then rating F, no problem. But if the same scenario for process related product risk approach, then there is a problem. Okay, so good process performance with insufficient input from other process leads to a rating lower than F. Argument is that with insufficient input, process cannot be executed without process risk. Okay, so the test process can only be executed for the given 40% of system requirement. Rating will be less than F. So altogether, there is absolutely no problem. You pick up any approach, but define well in advance in the plan, get the approval from your sponsor, and request your assessor to go for assessment based on your defined approach. So here process instances, very popular word in CMMI, because in CMMI generally organization go for maturity levels. There we require more than 3-4 process instances or 3-4 projects for the assessment. Now here also we have introduced the process instances. Again, like project management, one project management at system level, another project management at software level. So this would be the two process instances, and then you can aggregate the findings. Okay, so these are some of the examples provided for the process instances for driving the capability levels. Okay, example for aggregation results. So here, based on the different process instances, how to aggregate? You can simple numbering NPLF. Okay, N0, P1, L2 F3 and simply take the arithmetic mean. That is one approach without weighting. And second approach, arithmetic mean with weighting. Okay, you can provide like maybe system project management for product management. Project management process is 70%. For software 15, for hardware 15%. Okay, and then you can calculate the aggregated ratings. Okay, so that is possible. Now, if we are going for more process instances, pro and contra statements. This statement I gathered based on my experience, based on discussing with colleagues, with partners in the community, in Automotive Spice, in seminars. So here we can see, yes, we use full guideline. Now we can interpret practices in better way. Okay, and this is what consultants are doing. In fact, it is good to save the cost. Read the book and start implementing in your projects. Visualization of dependency supports the understanding. Okay, understanding of the model, because like BP1, BP2, BP3, BP4, these are simply number. This numbering does not define the sequence of implementation. Okay, so detailed scope definitions during planning phase support the objective and similar rating results. Adding a how. We know Automotive Spice is at what level, what should be. Okay, how is missing? Not missing actually. The objective of Automotive Spice is what, and how is people are developing their process, their guideline procedure in the company, and they are implementing. Adding a how book as a possible implementation and interpretation of Automotive Spice, what requirement. So these are very good points, but some are against, some are negative points. Now assessment will become more complicated if you satisfy all the rules and recommendations. We already seen so many rules recommendations. Assessment duration will be extended minimum 50%. So very simple. Who will pay? If you are paying for one assessment for 5 days, if you are asking assessor to use the guideline, then you are going to pay 7.5 days. Okay, so assessment will become more costly. Rules and recommendation will be used for formally calculating the assessor ratings. Assessor judgment becomes less important. Whereas the objective of Automotive Spice and the goal of the Spice was assessor's competence decides, assessor judgment decide the ratings of your processes. Half of the base practice will not be needed anymore, can be replaced by rules. So if you will go through the guideline, then you will realize then what for this base practice. Okay. Using indicators as a strict rating tool makes them much more important than purpose and outcome of the process. Okay. Using indicator as a strict rating tool. If we know the concept of Automotive Spice or any model defined based on ISO 33000 series, then requirement is the purpose and the outcomes. Indicators are optional. And rating is also for process attribute. ISO 33000 define the rating of process attribute, not the rating of base practice and generic practices. These are the indicator to support the assessor to rate the process attribute. But here they have considered indicator a strict rating tool, makes them much more important than purpose and outcome of the process. Guideline is trying to fight the symptoms of an incomplete assessment model instead of healing, fixing the root cause. Journal update of Automotive Spice. This guideline is destroying the initial idea of Automotive Spice, that is expert judgment of high experience assessor based on the evidence and justification for the assessed project scope. That was the idea of Automotive Spice. Because if you will put all these rules strictly or somebody will make the tool, then I don't know what will be the result. Okay. So this is about this presentation, and I prepared some FAQ. I know you will be asking some question. So I thought to reply your questions before you ask. Okay. So I added some questions here. In an assessment, still valid when rules are not considered. What happens? So after reading the guideline, and you know this is the requirement for competent assessor also, without guideline training you cannot register as a competent assessor or principal assessor. Does it mean that hereafter each and every rule should be followed? So according to ISO 33000, yes, guideline does not need to be considered. Okay, so not required as per ISO 33000. Are there rules which lead to downrate a complete PA 1.1? Is this expected? Okay. Is there any rule so that you can downrate the complete capability level 1? Yes. If strategy is not defined, we already discussed like in support process and right side testing processes. If a strategy is not complete and BP1 is P or N, then certainly it will influence all other BPs and PA 1.1 will be downrated for sure. How to justify downrating chain? Either just use the rule and downrate, simple and stupid. It means your knowledge does not make any sense. Better show the problem and consequences. Don't hide your competence behind the rules and regulations. That this rule is not following, that's why you downrated or uprated. Okay, show the problems, show the evidence, satisfy and consequences. Okay. Who check the correctness of assessment according to the guideline? Is there anybody? If you are conducting assessment, then who check whether you followed all or not? Officially, no one. At present, no one is checking. Maybe the sponsor, yes, he is paying you, assessor. He is paying you the cost of the assessment. They may check. For sure, not VDA, not in tax. Okay. They are not responsible for checking the assessment whether you performed as per guideline or not. But be careful. Customer is probably going to read the report. Okay. And you know this model is developed by customer to conduct assessment of their suppliers. So they are expert actually. Okay. So you should be careful for this. Down rating in relation with P plus minus L plus minus, actually yes, this extended rating scale was introduced in 3.1, but this is not yet considered in guideline. The semantic still remain the same, P and L. Okay. Can definition of down rated be clearer and more simplified? I don't know whether it makes sense or not. Okay. It all depends on assessor competence and the available data in the context of the process. Okay. In general, you have to consider this aspect as an additional weakness. You are the assessor. You are justifying that the rating of this is L. But if you find some rules are there which is defining some more important information, then certainly you should go one more rating down. Okay. So this is all about this webinar. Okay, I am done. Thank you very much. And now you can ask the questions by raising the hand. Okay, you can raise the hand, then I will ask so that you can ask the question. There is a functionality in this tool to raise the hand. Okay, you can raise hand, you can unmute, and you can ask the question. I did not find any questions. Yes. Yes, Mr. Sridhar.
Yeah, can you link ASPICE to CMMI?
Can you link a spice with CMI? Yes, why not? That is possible. But some gaps are there. Okay. And again, it depends on assessors and the requirement, and that is possible. Any other question, please? No more questions? Okay, then I think we will close if there is no more questions. Thank you very much for everyone for attending this webinar.
Thank you.
And yes, please, any question?
No, sir, I have taken the training from you only. Thank you so much.
Okay. So thank you very much. And I will send you the link for the feedback, and I would request if you can give your feedbacks, okay, so that I can prepare in better way for my next webinar. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
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 Thank you.